Hello and welcome to another episode of All Elite Arcade, your home for video game discussions here at AEW Games. As always, I'm Evil Uno here with the Chugs, and we're going to be talking about the video games we've been playing this week. Chugs, I know you're back to the cycle. You're playing the 5 games. We had a little pre-discussion. Both of us have been playing an immense amount of a lot of similar games. What are you doing nowadays? What are you jumping into, Chugs?
Yeah, so as mentioned, again, on Twitch, I go through a cycle of 5 different games. I know I've said this time and time again, but it's a wide variety of different games, kind of for everybody. But recently, at the beginning of last week, I was finishing up showcasing Silent Hill 2 and then continuing the original Silent Hill 2. So it was really, really cool to see a comparison because I was at like identical parts of the game, which was really, really cool. And I just noticed some really interesting differences. I think first of all, the one thing that so many people have brought up that I find fascinating is I made sure when I played the original Silent Hill 2 that I used the original voice acting lines. And I really, really love the differences there. Like some people, for example, with the original Silent Hill 2 feel like the voice acting is almost strange and off-putting and almost in like a dream state, which some people really enjoyed. And because they think it's a big part of what makes the story so special. And then some people weren't a huge fan of. I personally love the idea of the voice acting being that way to like further take you in to this story, what James is going through. However, the voice acting in Silent Hill 2 Remake is excellent. Incredibly realistic. Really, really cool. But also some differences too. Again, I know I had mentioned this before, but Silent Hill 2 Remake certainly has added some different aspects and areas to the game. It's definitely made it longer, which I really, really appreciate. But also, I can't decide which one I think is scarier, Uno. I can't because Remake, obviously graphically, is very impressive. There's a bunch of jump scares. The enemies feel more aggressive than they do in the original Silent Hill 2. And you're terrified to fight any enemy because you know you can't just like run away. In Silent Hill 2 OG, you're able to kind of run away and maneuver if you know what you're doing. But again, both of them are very scary for different reasons. But I will say this, original Silent Hill 2, so much darker.
Like
much
visually,
darker.
You mean, or as far as themes? Visually,
Yes.
okay.
Like,
do you think that's because of all the fog? Like, just graphically, they couldn't get the layers to it, or
no? So at this point, I was in the apartment building, actually. So I wasn't even outside. But again, the flashlight will help you see a little bit. But seriously, there are so many times where I'm like, where is this door? And I'll have to open the map and go, okay, there's something here. Let me run down this way to see if I can find it because it is pitch black, which really, really adds to the horror element of it. And it also, again, the map in Remake is so great about marking different things and stuff like that. But yeah, again, Silent Hill 2, both OG and the Remake are really, really excellent games. But I am going to continue a little bit further, like I said, with the original Silent Hill 2. And then I might come back to Silent Hill 2 Remake on stream, or I may finish it afterwards. I'm not totally sure.
Now that you're playing both, so like a lot of people love the music from the new game. Do you now like it's most of it is atmospheric through the game, so there's not a lot of like title card music or as far as like big moment songs. But do you find that tonally and musically you like one over the other, or is it about the same idea?
So what has made me incredibly happy is the music. I'm not saying it's identical, but it's really close. Like they did a great job at having the original music in an updated way, but it doesn't feel like they completely remixed a song or anything. There certainly is great OST because again, the song Promise from the original Silent Hill 2, it's one of the most famous Silent Hill songs, is one of my favorites, and that very much is in Remake as well. So they did a very, very good job of making the music very similar to the original, which is cool. So I'm excited to continue a little bit more again with the original and then jump back into Remake as well. But in addition to that, of course, I jumped into some more The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. I'm still side questing like crazy. I'll probably be playing that game for months and months because there's so much to do, and I love every second of it. Again, The Witcher 3 has some of, if not the best side quests I've ever played. Also finally put some more time into Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door. Had like a nice 4-hour stream into that. This is my first experience. Again, I'll say it over and over again, but just one of the most charming Mario experiences. The puzzles are really cool too. Like as you continue to gain more abilities, it almost has like a Metroidvania aspect to it where you're like, oh, I have this.
You pass by like a thing that you wouldn't even question beforehand, and then when you get the skill, you're like, oh, I could probably switch to paper 3D form and like slip through these two cracks, and like it's very neat. You're actually at this point you've got to be pretty deep into that game because that's not like it's not a 100-hour game. You're at least 20 hours in.
No, yeah. I've gotten my, now again, I do have a tendency to play a little slow, but I got my second or third, I believe it's the second Crystal Star. So I still have a few more to go, but yeah, I've definitely put some time in. I'm pretty deep into the game now, and I'm just loving it more and more every single time. So the characters are so memorable. And once again, also continuing Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin as well. I got to put some serious time into that as well. And that's been really fun because I'm in the process now. For anyone who's played Dark Souls 2, I just got to the Iron Keep. And many people say that is where the real Dark Souls 2 begins.
Oh, you got through the Poison Lakes then. You're all done that area.
Yes.
Dang,
so,
okay.
Dude, so challenging. Oh, and also another thing about Dark Souls 2, that actually I'm so glad you brought that up because I just got through the poison area where you end up fighting this minor spoilers, but you end up fighting this queen of sorts, or this princess who is like consumed with wanting to look youthful or look a certain way. So she like consumes poison. Obviously, she ends up turning into a monster. But that boss fight is so interesting because if you fight this boss without doing this one specific thing, she just constantly regenerates health. And the idea of figuring out where you have to go is through this whole area. There's this windmill that like is off in the corner, and when you walk up to it, it looks like you shouldn't be able to walk up to it, and like you could fall off at any second. But when you get there, a prompt shows up and it says torch or like light, and you have to light the windmill on fire to prevent the boss from constantly regenerating health. The only hint you have is that there's an enemy kind of standing in front of it. But again, my first playthrough, it took me forever to figure that out. But I knew this time playing through it again.
It's got to be like quasi-impossible once it constantly regenerates too, right?
Yeah, you would think. I mean, I've seen people try to do the fight when she's regenerating, and it seems incredibly difficult, borderline impossible for sure. So, but again, I'm sticking to my classic quality build. I just switched to a different sword that I'm leveling up. So yeah, once again, having a blast. That's my final FromSoft Soulsborne game that I need to beat on stream. But also Uno, again, my travel game this week, since we've been traveling a lot more, once again, jumping further into Nine Souls, and I'm finally starting to get the hang of it. Every time I say that I have a new challenge in my way. Again, this is like almost a 2D Sekiro where parrying is vital to the combat. I'm currently fighting my first boss, who again I'm very, very close to beating, but I'm still dying over and over again. It's one of the most challenging 2D Metroidvanias that I've played, but it's so addicting. Like I love it so much. I'm really excited to put even more time into it and get better and better at the game. But the biggest one, I think, time-wise, and we talked about this.
I'm excited for this because I think both of us got blindsided by this week for sure.
Dude, blindsided. When we said last week on our podcast, oh man, Nintendo Music app, I'm definitely going to download that. I have. It's amazing.
Yep, I started my playlist. I'm not done yet, but I'm getting through it.
Yeah. And there was another thing that we talked about, something called Pokemon trading card game Pocket. I am so addicted to this game.
Both of us discussed it, but last night it was the last thing I did before bed. And the first thing this morning, you woke up and you're like, I gotta unpack my packs. I've got to get out there.
Pack.
I don't know why, because I'm not even that big on collecting cards. Shout out to Upper Deck, by the way. Thank you very much for supporting us as always. Our title sponsor here for AEW games, All Elite Arcade. But so I'm personally, I'm not big on unpacking them physically. Something about it though, and I think it's because monetarily buying the packs and not getting what I want, it's just eventually you end up spending so much. Doing it digitally, I cannot stop grinding at the game so I can get just enough stuff to get a new pack and see how much I'm unlocking. And you haven't even we're gonna get into this, but you haven't even engaged in the battle system yet.
No, not yet. But talking to you before we went live today,
Mhm.
I know immediately after this, I got to start doing the battles. But for now, I've just been having so much fun collecting the cards. Or like, I love the wonder pick that you can
Yes.
do, where you save up a certain amount of stamina and you'll look through other people's cards and you're like, oh my God, they have a Venusaur, or there's a Mewtwo, and you just hope so bad that you're going to pull a good card.
It's
Like
a
I
one
got
of five chance that you might potentially pick that card. It's like a gamble every time. Yes.
Yep. Like I got a shiny like special edition Bulbasaur from a Wonder Pick, and that so far Uno is my rarest card. But I do have a pretty good collection. I think I have, God, like 170 cards total, but I think 110 like original cards, which is nice. But man, it is so good for anyone who hasn't played it yet. If you love Pokemon, if you love Pokemon cards, this game rules. And like you said, Uno, there's something about it digitally. I like playing Uno as a video game. I like the Pokemon trading card game as a video game, but it's just so good. It's so good.
And like the unpacking mechanics is really neat because there's an actual physical card pack. You slice the top of the cards.
Yes.
You swipe the cards out as well. It's very neat. And then also you can flip the cards around. You can also flip the pack around. So if you start the pack from upside down, it's like this fun reveal game where you have the back of a card, you flip it around, you find out what you're having. It's really neat. And much like you, like I've been doing the wonder picks, I've been jumping around. I've got the Mewtwo shiny cards. I don't know what the cost of them are, but we're about the same thing. I think I'm in like 200 cards, 160 original on their own. And they haven't even unveiled the future stuff either. So
exactly. Yeah. They're going to add more and more stuff. And I do want to give a quick shout out again before you jump further into this. Is the OST is amazing. The song that plays after you open a pack and you're going through your cards. Uno, I screen recorded it this morning because you can't find it anywhere.
So you can throw it on your MP3,
so I could just listen to it sometimes. You know, it's so good, man. I love it.
I was playing my Spotify through it originally, and then one day I just like didn't have my Spotify on, and I was like, "What the hell? This song rules!"
Yeah, it's so good, so good. But Uno, obviously you've been playing the Pokemon trading card game as well. So I don't know if there's any more you want to say, but what have you been playing this week?
So yes, I've been playing a lot of that trading card game. I think much like you with our travels. I decided, it's funny, after our podcast last week, I downloaded Nintendo Music and I downloaded this simultaneously. And I didn't even touch the TCG, the trading card game, for a while. I was just playing with the music because I'm like, oh, Donkey Kong. I'm going through Animal Crossing. I'm going through all these Mario games. And I'm just so happy I'm finally getting to compile a list of like all these songs that I like. And then I was like, oh, you know what? I should probably try this Pokemon thing out. And I have put in several hours every day. And it's a pretty good mechanic because the original like little early bits where you're doing the intros, it rewards you for every little bit of intro mission you do. And that reward allows you to complete the timer to get another unpack. So you constantly feel like you're getting rewarded. And then at one point, and I think you're probably reached that point where you have no choice but to wait the 12 hours for the next point to get your next card. And that's when I decided, I was like, oh, I should probably get into like the versus system and I should get into the card battles. And they're really fun. Like I've never played the Pokemon card game physically. Actually, most card games physical I've never played because I was so scared of either screwing up my cards or playing for keeps, which was what most people when I was a kid, when we would play card games, Magic and stuff, it'd be like, okay, cool, I'll put this card versus this card, whoever wins gets the pile. And I'm like, not a chance. My mother would kill me if this happened.
Uno, I am so sorry to stop you for a second. Go for it. Very, very quickly, because you just told me this, made me think of a story that has like a happy ending. So when I was younger, same thing. I had my Pokemon cards. My prized possession was my shiny Blastoise, my hollow Blastoise. And a sixth grader wanted to see my cards. He gave me my cards back. He stole my Blastoise. I cried all day at home. But years later, a member of the Chugs Army, my Twitch community, at a meet and greet, gave me a hollow Blastoise. to like
Oh.
redeem it. How cool is that?
So I assume you told this story out there for them to do this?
I did. I've told it on stream before. I've told it on stream before.
It would have been wild if your bully years later was like, "I'm so sorry."
Right? Yeah, that's true. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no. So yeah, the battle system is actually pretty good. You can build your own decks, and what's very neat is because early on you don't have that many cards. You can by doing the tutorial missions, you'll have rental decks, so you can rent a full deck that's already pre-made for different types. You know, it could be electric, could be dragon type, could be fighting type. But it makes the battles a lot more interesting because at the early part of the game, you have cards, but it's very rare that you have incredibly good cards, and you haven't fully figured out how one card affects the other. So building your early packs are very hard to play with. But by getting these rental decks, you can actually I think I'm 7 versus battles in, and I've won a fair share, and I haven't even built my own deck. I'm only using rental decks at this moment. So it's very neat. And the other thing too is you're rewarded for it. So as you do these battle decks, you do get time back to get your open packs. You do get wonder picks. There's a whole shop system too that I don't fully understand yet, but like, because theoretically I've been able to buy everything fairly easily with just the amount of time I've done with the free stuff. But there is a whole premium section. Like there's a monthly subscription. I don't know the price of it, but both of us are contemplating it. That give you like a different, they give you extra currency, but they also give you like another unlock tree of benefits. I don't know where I am now. At this moment, I'm telling myself I'm not going to do it. But by next week, that may change because I'm very, very addicted.
I know. God, it's so good.
In another similar, in a lot of ways, I'm a little ashamed knowing that I'm already a week in going to do this. But in a similar shame when it comes to video games, I've put so much time into the new Fortnite season already.
Yes.
I've already completed the Battle Pass, which it's only been out 7 days. Which is not a thing a normal person should be capable of doing. But I've been like min-maxing the experience gained in this game because the way Fortnite works is that you have Fortnite the proper mode, but then you have Fortnite Reloaded, and then you have Fortnite Creator, and then you have Fortnite Lego Racing, the music mode that's kind of like a rock band. So I've just been min-maxing it where I'll go into missions for specifically some of these games and just be like, okay, if in a run of 3 songs I can get 90,000 XP and I make those songs 2 minutes long, then I can do this in 8 minutes and I can get a ton of levels, and it would be faster than just playing a single game of Fortnite. So I've been yesterday, and I'm ashamed, but I'm going to admit it. For like 2 hours, I'm just playing the same 2 songs over and over in Fortnite music mode with headphones in the middle of the night, just jamming in front of my television.
Yes.
And like, not even the most exciting video game stuff. I just cannot stop myself from trying to unlock every piece of item because I know I'm not going to end up playing every day Fortnite like I have previously. And I'm like, I've got to get every single piece. It's great. This new Fortnite is back to basics in a lot of ways. There's not a lot of like contrived weapons. The previous season was very Marvel heavy, so you had people with blasters, you had people flying, you had people, that could be running full sprint faster than everyone else because everyone had like, you can get a weaponry that would give you the power of Black Panther, or give you the powers of War Machine or Iron Man, or get the Captain America shield. In this one, it's very just game focus, very just gun focus. You're back to the basics. The only thing is they've expanded on the vehicles now. So now it's not just cars. There's boats around. There's helicopters, which is almost like cheating, especially when you're doing like a squad. When your squad of 4 people can just like hover above everyone and just land and attack people. It's terrifying to be on the other end, but man, you feel very powerful when you're in that helicopter for sure.
That sounds awesome. So is the helicopter just somewhere on the map?
Yeah, so I think like in this large map, there's 3 locations that are guarded because they're on top of like the 100 players that you're playing against. They also have NPC enemies within the game that defend certain areas, and so like for example, the one portion of the map is defended with a vault at the bottom of it. So if you end up defeating the boss of that section, you'll get a card. You can get into the vault, and in the vault we'll have some of the more legendary items, so that you can go throughout the rest of the world. But the issue is that on top of fighting these people, it's a hot commodity, which means like of 100 people, probably 20 people will land there. So you're just full guns out blasting everywhere. And there's extra benefits too. Some nowadays, so in previous seasons, you had to recruit the bosses by interacting with them and talking to them. They were just NPCs you talk to. You would give them gold, and they would become your like plus ones, and they could scan. Awesome. They can add guns and stuff. In this one, the bosses are Eminem, Ice Spice, and Snoop Dogg. And yes, once you defeat them, they'll be like, all right, cool, give me a high five. You give them a high five, and then they help you. So like it's like you're rewarded for going out of your way and really attacking the game, and it makes it easier on other ends. It's been very neat because it's simplistic now without it feeling cheap, and it's very, very good.
You're making me want to jump back into Fortnite. It's been quite some time.
Yeah, Chugs, if you do it, I'll drop everything in my life and we'll play. That's how addicted I am to Fortnite nowadays.
Let's go.
I've said it before, but I am ashamed of the amount of time and money I've put into this game.
Hey, no shame. No shame. Right. Be proud of it, Uno. Be proud of it. I'm proud of you.
On the less casual video game front, I did jump back into Call of Duty. We talked about it last few weeks. Yes. I played some of the campaign, some of the zombie mode. I haven't touched the multiplayer quite yet. I'm 2 hours into the campaign, and it's like those games are always visually stunning in a way that they're lit in a way that I'm like, I'm practically watching a movie that I'm playing. And I'm actually kind of interested in the story this time, which is fascinating because it's just a shooting game. But like, I love the dialogue trees that you have with characters. They're very well animated. It, in a lot of ways, feels like what Bethesda's engines should eventually become. But like, Call of Duty just does it every year, right? And so they've really fleshed out that single player mode. It seems very interesting. You're in between bases, or in between like missions, you're part of a big base, which is a mansion. And within that mansion, you can use the money to like generate new weapons, generate armor, increase certain things. But within the mansion too, there's secret things to unlock. So it becomes an escape room at some point, and you're like going through around. You're using black lights to get codes to play into a piano. The piano opens a door, but that door won't open. But then you go to another door, and it has a whole system on generating power to an item you don't know, and then that opens another door. And so it's been really neat. In between shooting things, I'm like solving puzzles, and that's what I like the most.
The puzzle master.
And that's right. That's my thing.
Again, this campaign, I still have not jumped into it yet, Uno, but I'm so excited to play it, especially after hearing that you said you're really enjoying it. It just sounds like it's one of the best Call of Duty campaigns in years from everyone I've talked to.
From everything I've read, it seems incredibly highly rated, and like from what I've played, it seems really good. I'm really excited to get further into it because I'm just in like establishing missions now. And then I did jump into zombies. I've played zombies before. There's lore to zombies that I didn't realize. There's like a Tesla machine. There's this mysterious black smoke that kidnaps people that I don't fully understand. But mechanically, the game is so fun. It's just jump into... I don't know what. I think it feels... I'm not going to say it's a perfect game, but like I feel like if I only had to play one game, I could probably just play zombie mode over and over and over and over. It seems very rewarding in a way because like I can get a 10-minute run, and then when I get back into it, I'm like, okay, this time I'm not going to go for this item. I'm not going to go for this gate. I'm going to go through this direction. It's been very, very good. So, and that got me to reignite my Game Pass subscription, which I had stopped buying for 5-6 months now. And we have a ton of games that are coming out at Game Pass. We were just talking about this before, but you were watching Stalker 2, and that comes out this month, and I'm pumped for that for sure.
I was going to say, speaking of Game Pass, again, November 20th, Stalker 2 drops. And I had never played, I think as far as Xbox with like big titles for the rest of the year, I know we're only 2 months, 2 more months to go for 2024. But again, Stalker 2 and Indiana Jones have to be the two heavy hitters from Xbox.
For sure.
But they're two real heavy hitters. Again, I had never played the original Stalker, but I was watching some footage of Stalker 2, and not only does the game look absolutely beautiful, but again, the survival aspects of this game seem so interesting. Like I love the idea. First of all, they say it's a 40-hour campaign and 100 hours if you want to do everything.
Damn.
That it's like impossible to be able to play through or do everything in your first playthrough. Also, again, it's the classic, your actions have consequences.
Ooh.
There's no way that you're going to meet every single NPC and interact with everyone, because if you help one guy, it changes something down the road, or vice versa. Also love the realism, again, of needing to take care of yourself with the radiation. It has like survival aspects as well. Mm-hmm. But then I also love that if you're using like a cheap gun, there's a very good chance it's going to jam. There's a very good chance you're not going to be able to shoot. You're going to get attacked. So between bandits and monsters, this game for sure seems like something I want to jump into, especially with the realism and the open world aspects and just all the different possibilities that can happen. I will definitely be playing Stalker 2 day one on Game Pass for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because this one kind of feels like a sleeper hit, where I remember it being announced, but I've never played the Stalker games, and so had no affinity for it. I never really considered it. But you've spoken about it. I saw some some initial feelings online, and people seem to be really pumped about what they've played. Now that I have Xbox Game Pass, I just this week I put a very minute amount of time into Metal Slug Tactics.
Ooh,
and
nice.
That just came out this week. I'm realizing that Stalker's coming out in a couple of weeks. At the end of this month, Flight Simulator 2024 gets added onto Xbox. Next month we've got Indiana Jones. So it's a good time to get on Game Pass. Surprisingly, what felt like there was a lull of like big Xbox releases in this month and onwards. It seems like there's at least a big title every month at the very least. And so I'm really excited to jump into Stalker as well as these other games too. And then last thing, I also put in about an hour into the Alan Wake DLC Lake House.
Beautiful. I want to hear about this.
Yeah. So it's very neat because it is the connecting point between Control and Alan Wake. Now they're straight up just admitting out loud on all of their social networks they're just working on Control 2 and their first-person shooter, their 3-person co-op shooter game that is coming out, FPC Outbreak, I think it was called. I'm not deep into Lake House, but you can already tell this one's going to be more dark, and while parts of the Alan Wake 2 game are very meta, this one is already very meta in a sense where it's like, hey, if you played our previous games, we're going to start making links and you're going to start putting pieces together. What's neat about this one is Alan Wake 2 is about how Alan Wake's writing has power. And so what he writes becomes real. And so there's a lot of mixture between what is writing and what is the video game and what is a previous video game, what is the video game's writing itself, in a way that it becomes meta and all of it becomes one big thing. The writer of the actual video game is in the game, but he's a detective, but that detective is also implied to be Max Payne, and Max Payne is titled of the owner. The owner also plays an actor, and that actor plays the actor that plays Max Payne, and they make reference to it. So it just becomes this big smorgasbord of meta content. This one's the same thing, but they're talking about how instead of the writing, they realize because Control is about experiments on the supernatural. It's like a government entity that either regulates it or is trying to understand it. And Lake House is about a lake house near the lake where Alan Wake is, and the lake is what actually they imply gives power to Alan Wake's writing.
Okay.
And so they're testing what the lake might be capable of. Can they reproduce the power if they just write like Alan Wake near the lake? Or can they do it through other art forms? And in this one, what seems to be the big bad of Lake House is they've taken that power and infused it into a painter, and the painter starts making these ethereal, abstract paintings, and those paintings come to life, and you're jumping from paintings, you're fighting weird abominations made of paint. It's very neat as of yet. I can't wait to play more of it, but very excited to find the connecting pieces. I'm just honestly having more Alan Wake content is very, very cool.
I think, I think Uno for sure. Once I get through Silent Hill 2 remake, whether that's on stream or off stream, my next horror game that I need to finish is Alan Wake 2, especially with the DLC that just dropped. I really enjoyed the little bit that I played, so I'm glad to know the DLC is awesome too.
Yeah, the deeper you get into that game, the more it's rewarding too. Like, because they form some ideas at first, but it doesn't like get unhinged until much later into that game. So yeah, well worth your time for sure. Nice. But that's it. Surprisingly enough, we played a lot of video games this week.
Yeah, we did.
We sure did. It was a good week for both myself and Chugs. But that's not all. We've got other things to discuss, including the news of the week coming up right after this. And we're back. Welcome. We're going to be talking the news. It's November. Yeah. There's some news pieces that are out, and as well some stuff that I want to get our little opinions on. But let's start off with BioWare has no plans for Dragon Age: The Veilguard. That is the new game that they just released last week, I think.
Yeah,
very recently. They have no plan for DLC at all, and they have now moved all of their energy to the next Mass Effect game, which is supposed to be Mass Effect 5. This comes to no surprise because in a lot of ways, BioWare has gone through they used to be known for their DLC, BioShock DLC, Mass Effect DLC, but in recent years, they've really seemed to have dropped a game and they're shelved to the next thing. And also this one is not entirely surprising because this Dragon Age game, they've worked on it for the last decade, and it seems to have come out and it does not have a huge player base. So I'm sure a lot of it is also them holding off and making sure that their next investment is worth their while. But to give you an idea, Dragon Age Origins in 2009, Dragon Age 2 in 2011, Inquisition was 2014, The Veilguard was in 2024. So it's a 10-year gap between that, and they had no DLC for the previous game. In between, the only big game that they had released was Mass Effect Andromeda, which did middling as well. Yeah. And Anthem, which did horrendously. It had mixed reviews. They pulled the plug on any form of updates on it, so there was no DLC. There wasn't even support for the game in the long run. Instead trying to focus on their next title, which was this Dragon Age game. So not entirely surprised this happens. I can't have a big opinion on if it's good or bad because, to be truthful, BioWare to me is about the Mass Effect games. Like that's the top seller for them for sure, and that's the thing I'm most excited for.
Easily. Yeah, those Mass Effect games are regarded as not just amazing games, but some of the greatest of all time. Mm-hmm. Specifically, I know Mass Effect 2 for a lot of people is one of their favorites ever. So again, the idea that BioWare is going to jump back into Mass Effect 5 is very exciting, and I hope it's awesome. I really, really do. So it'll be exciting to see what they do. They
also seem like that seems to be in a lot of ways, this is their piggy bank. This is the thing that brings in the most money. They're even working on a TV show right now. They announced that Amazon Prime has picked up a Mass Effect TV show. It includes the Fast and Furious 9 writer on it, Daniel Casey, and he's also the person that wrote 10 Cloverfield Lane. So they're hinging their bets on this one. Hopefully it works out and it's better than what Gearbox did with Borderlands, right? Where Borderlands they put a lot of investment in, but unfortunately the movie didn't bring that return back. So hopefully this Mass Effect pitch reignites the franchise and we get more stuff.
Oh, for sure.
We've got a couple Nintendo pieces here, starting with, we talked about this not long ago, but Nintendo was suing Palworld, or at least the developers of Palworld. There's more information about this. Nintendo is not asserting patents on genuine technological inventions, but they're trying to monopolize game rules. So what they actually sued about is not about it being Pokemon. but more about mechanical things within the video game being things that they patented. The weird thing is their patents are actually patents that they patented after Palworld came out.
Yeah.
In what is considered a patenting, which is essentially you can claim a patent in connection to a previous patent. So they had previous Pokemon patents, but they're saying that this is part of the greater scope of Pokemon. They're suing for what we thought was an insane amount, but we discussed this. 5 million yen, which to us were like, I can't believe they're doing this to an independent developer. But that comes out to only $66,000 US.
Yeah. Not as bad as I thought it was going to be when I heard this lawsuit was coming up.
It still sucks. I'm not aboard I'm not aboard them doing this, but
that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
That's still a lot of money.
All things considered.
But 5 million sounds like the death of you and all your family. Like at that point. Right. So the patents here are, and I won't read. There's a full description if you want to go and find out. There's a full description of what the patents are. But it comes down to the 3 patents are the Pokeball, about how the use of throwing a ball to capture a creature is a patent that Pokemon has done. They claim that the Palworld creature capture system is too similar to that. And so that's one of the cases that they're pulling up against. The second is about character movement and collision. Essentially, as you're maneuvering on there, the way that you initiate battles, they believe Pokemon's or mechanics are very similar to Palworld, and so the creature combat would infringe on that. That one's, I can understand the Pokeball. That one seems a little iffy. Like it's not like they invented RPGs. And then the third one that they are also claiming is about dynamic mounting. So how in Pokemon in more recent years, you can mount a Pokemon and then maneuver between different, going through grass would slow you down, but then you jump into that, into your Pokemon, you can run through and be faster. Well, they're claiming that Palworld has a similar system for player-controlled creatures and mounts that is close to them. Also one, I'm not entirely sure. I think there is something probably with the Pokeball, if we're being truthful. Sure. The other two, not so much. But that continues. I'm sure we'll be talking about it for the next year. This is not going to be a quick ordeal unless they settle on something. Still mixed bag reactions on this. I think they're not wrong for certain things, but also simultaneously maybe overreaching on what this lawsuit is all about.
Yeah, Uno, we're in complete agreement. I couldn't have said it better. It's a little bit of both for me. It's a little bit of both for me. So,
and then another big Nintendo piece of news. Actually, well, it's kind of coupled together. But just recently, they said that they are not emphasizing commitments to larger budgets. In the future, they will not be adding larger budgets to their video games. Instead, they'll continue the course on Nintendo's philosophy, and they would rather invest in new ideas. Same structure, same amount of money per game, but they're really trying to invest into things that are out of the norm, which, to be honest, and we discussed this a little bit before, that's Nintendo's bread and butter.
That's Nintendo. That's Nintendo at its core. They've always focused on trying new things. What I love about that too is sometimes it succeeds tremendously well, and then sometimes it doesn't do as well. But they constantly are trying new ideas, which I appreciate about Nintendo. Again, they stand out as far as everyone else, like with Sony and Microsoft, and obviously Nintendo, one of the most successful video game companies of all time. But yeah, I appreciate that. I like when Nintendo gets creative and tries new stuff.
Yeah, it's weird. There's like a race for other consoles on who's the fastest, who's the strongest, how many frames you can generate. And while that is cool, in the end, the winner is always going to be a PC, right? So you're really just competing. Xbox, PlayStation, and PC were kind of competing in one way. Now it's kind of about their subscription services. So I think how the future of video game goes, I think will be different. But Nintendo, what I think they've always done great is like they just ignore what people are working at. They're like, nope. You guys are doing this, we're going to do a handheld game. And guess what? That revolutionizes how video game is done afterwards. Everyone works on a handheld game. Sometimes it doesn't work, right? You know, the motion control with Wii, great experiment, but it didn't have future life. It kind of just slowed down. They left from it. Labo they made, which
there you go.
Super fascinating idea, but obviously it didn't have that many legs to it. A great collector's item, though, for sure.
Yeah.
But another thing
I think too, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go, please.
I was just going to say, going as far back as, again, I know we've talked about Nintendo very early on, signing third-party developers to be made exclusively for them. But even looking as far back as the Virtual Boy, experimenting with almost some form of virtual reality in some way. They constantly have been trying new stuff. So yeah, it's cool.
And they're doing Game Boy before anyone else was trying to do handhelds as well. Which also just a little side tangent on Nintendo in general. But I genuinely love that they do that. I think that's what makes them so different. I'm still super excited about their next console. We talked about it a little bit, but it still seems like it will be coming out in the first quarter of next year. We think, bold prediction, but the Game Awards are in December. They did say they would talk about it this year.
Ooh,
I
hope so. I hope so bad. That'd be so huge for the Game Awards. Hopefully we get some sort of Switch 2 or Switch successor announcement at the Game Awards. But also, Uno, I know we had talked about this as well, but this is really exciting that this news officially dropped, because you're not totally sure. You were hoping that this was the case, but apparently Nintendo has announced that the Switch successor, the Switch 2 or whatever, I know we don't know what it's called yet, but it is backwards compatible to all your original Switch games, and Nintendo Switch Online will also continue. So the being able to play the old school NES, SNES games and stuff like that. I bet they even extend it, because I immediately thought, what if they add GameCube?
I'm hoping.
Oh man.
Yeah, if they launch and they say that, like, hey, you can play Eternal Darkness, you can play Mario Sunshine and all that on your virtual console, they've got me. Because that's one of those catalogs I love to revisit, because I didn't have as much time with Super Nintendo. Of course I love to revisit, don't get me wrong, I think they're incredible, but I've played a lot of those games a lot of times. GameCube is dusting that off is always a little harder for me.
And again, what's so exciting about this is, as far as my game library, I have the most games on Switch. I have 144 games on my Switch.
Dang.
As far as games downloaded, to the point where I'm gonna have to switch and get a 1 terabyte SD card pretty soon. Uno, I have 8 gigs left on my Switch OLED.
Wow, so, that would be perfect for the next Switch too. I'm sure they'll probably have external support for SD cards as well. And on a similar beat, they also said that they wanted to extend their third party system because they wanted to show more respect to third parties. For the next console cycle. And I know they haven't talked details. I don't know if they're going to sign exclusivity on third party or they're just trying to really flesh out more support for third party games. Somehow I think they want to be in the racing, maybe not Call of Duty, but some games that will not take huge amounts of graphics might simultaneously land on Switch 2. And I hope that is the case, because they're a portable device. And if let's say, I know Witcher 4 is not coming out in the next 2 years, but let's say Witcher 4 did come out in the next 2 years, it would be great to find out I can also play it on Switch on the go, and compete essentially with Steam Deck, because Steam Deck has taken that market. So very exciting times for Nintendo, and hopefully we will hear about that Switch 2 very soon. I'm crossing my fingers, can't see it, but there it is.
I know. I got my toes crossed too, Uno. Fingers and toes crossed. Yeah.
And then finally, on the other side of it, Sony has gone on and said that they will be releasing a major single-player game every single year from 2025 onwards. And so that leads to the discussion of what are they potentially releasing. So this year, they released the Lego Horizon stuff. They released Helldivers. They released all kinds of other stuff. Next year, we already know about a few of them. We know Ghost of Yotei is coming out. Super excited for that one.
Oh, yeah.
That's a first-party studio that they own. Death Stranding 2, which is supposed to come out. Very excited on that. A Kojima production video game that is not Death Stranding 2 is also supposed to be coming on PS5, an exclusive title next year. No clue what that is. There's been no talks about that yet, so that's very exciting. We also know Insomniac, which is one of their first-party studios, is working on a Wolverine game. I bet you that's not next year. That'll probably be the year after, but
I agree.
They made incredible Spider-Man games. very, very excited to see what they do next. And that leads to what I wanted to talk about, and that's speculating what their other first-party stuff is doing. I don't think we're going to see a lot of these first parties in the next year, but we might start hearing about these games. I'm going to name some of these, and then maybe if you have any bold predictions, we can jump into it.
Sure.
Sony Santa Monica, those are the people that make God of War. Guerrilla, they made the Horizon games. They just released that Lego Horizon game. And also, they're expected to continue that series. Naughty Dog has multiple games in the work. They've already said they are. What is that? That I'm super curious about.
Yeah, that to me immediately. I'm like, okay, because first they have to be making a Last of Us Part 3.
I would think so. Yeah, that's their that, and also I think we're not far from another Uncharted game. I feel like in some sense, I wouldn't be surprised if they have one of each and a new IP, because I feel like they're due for a new thing for sure.
Right.
And they're a huge developer now. They have so many hands at play. They could actually pull that off. Bend Studio, which did Days Gone, which I enjoyed.
I was going to say, too, Days Gone, incredibly underrated.
Yes.
I think, and maybe I played a different version of it, but I played it very shortly after it was released. I had a blast with Days Gone. I thought it was a really cool new IP.
I think a lot of people just kind of compared it to Last of Us, and they pushed it off as like, another zombie game. But I really enjoyed it. Like, I love the whole biking mechanic. I love the camp system.
And that horde mode of like hundreds or thousands of zombies charge you, that was such an adrenaline rush. But anyway, I'm excited to see what else Bend Studio is going to work on.
Yeah, I'm hoping they work on something completely out of the norm too. I would love them to tackle another IP. Like, I don't want a Days Gone 2. I think that game is cool, but I think I would love to see them do a new thing. And then the last two they've got Housemarque or House Marquee. I can't remember how you pronounce it, but they made Returnal. They make a lot of and they've said they're not going to make a large third-person single-player game again, where they're like, Returnal was cool, but we're gonna go back to our roots. They were doing top-down shooters. They were doing space shooters. They were doing 360 shooters, and so they're working on a new product. Who knows what that is? They're very good at what they do, though. They do very good arcade games, so I'm very excited. And then Media Molecule, the people that made Little Big Planet and Dreams, are developing a brand new IP. What that is, I don't know. Those guys and gals work wonders, and it could be anything. It could be anything.
It really could. I have just a little side note. I have very little experience with Little Big Planet. I've only ever seen people play it. I haven't really played it. But Dreams was such an amazing concept.
Yes.
It was incredible. I at one point would go on YouTube and just look up the most creative, amazing Dreams creations. And it's unbelievable what people were able to do. If you give the gaming audience the chance to create worlds and stuff like that and make it easy and accessible, again, I don't think I could do it, but there's so many creative people out there. And Dreams was awesome. Dreams was really, really cool.
It's crazy to think that they built a game that you can build the back end of a game, the actual logistics of it, but you could also sculpt 3D sculptures. You could do music in it. You can import music. You could do every component of a video game in one single video game, which is very fascinating. If you don't know, you can get Dreams on PS Plus in the catalog. Go look at some of the stuff people have created. It's insane when you think about, this is a video game about making video games, and within it, they have full fleshed out experiences, and there's a lot of them too. So very exciting for Sony and Nintendo. Plus, we just talked about it last week. Xbox is doing great with Call of Duty.
I was going to say.
Game Pass is doing bonkers. It looks like we're heading into a good year.
Yes.
But that's it for the news for this week. There's other tidbits, but you can go on your news sites and go check it out. Those were the big three ones that we wanted to talk about. But that's not all. You know exactly what comes next. It's our favorite segment. It's the community mailbag, and it happens right after this. Welcome back. It's time. It's finally that time. It's time for our favorite segment, the All Elite Arcade Mailbag, brought to you by Upper Deck. Thank you to Upper Deck for sponsoring this episode and all future episodes right now. Collect your favorite wrestlers in 2024's Upper Deck AEW and start your trading card collection today. unwrap autographs, memorabilia, and premium tech inserts. We've got the Chugs here holding his cards.
And look what we got here.
We've got
look
Miro. We've got
cool
Nyla.
Nyla.
That's all of the acclaimed, including Mr.
All of
Gunn.
the acclaimed in that one.
Mariah May, which I believe that's her first card in a deck.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Ami Sakura, I miss you.
Oh, this is a good. Oh, that's a good pack.
Ooh, shiny
Sting and Darby Hollow. Oh, let's go.
And that looks like a Wheaties box with Keith Lee.
Right?
And Ty Conti as well.
Yeah. And I think we have just a few. There's Claudio.
Yes, main man over here.
And
Bush and Blade.
Beautiful. Bush and Blade.
Man, remember when Bush had hair?
Right.
Thunder Rosa.
And ending it with Eddie Kingston.
Eddie Kingston. We miss you. I hope you're doing okay out there, pal.
Yes, we miss you.
Visit upperdeck.com to learn more, and you can get your cards as well as AEW cards and all kinds of other sports cards as well as other stuff. Go to upperdeck.com for more. All right, we've got 3 questions. Chugs, lead the way.
You got it. First up is a question from Garcia. Garcia, thank you very much for sending in your question. Hey, Chugs and Uno, what is your video game Hear Me Out idea?
Okay, if I can go second on this one, I'm about to go on a rant, so we'll get into it.
Okay. So mine, as many of you know, I am a huge Halo fan, specifically a huge Halo 5 multiplayer fan. I know a lot of people probably won't agree with me on this, but some people probably will. Halo 5's multiplayer is my favorite in the entire series, and one of my favorite things about Halo 5 was the Warzone mode. Now, I know in Halo Infinite they have Warzone Firefight, which is very, very nice, but the traditional Warzone map of 12v12 with bosses all across the map and bases to capture was some of the most fun I've ever had in multiplayer video games. And in addition to that, I really, really loved how in Halo 5, there were like 3 versions of every single weapon. I loved the rec packs. I loved the idea of getting enough kills on either AI or the other players to then go to a little station and go, all right, I'm going to get the maxed out sniper rifle, or I'm going to get a speed boost or an overshield. It was so much fun. So my Hear Me Out is, please, in Halo Infinite, add a traditional Warzone mode with upgraded versions of weapons that you can purchase. I miss it. I love it. Halo Infinite is an amazing multiplayer experience, but my God, I love that in Halo 5. That's my Hear Me Out.
And they're still shelling out that game, and there's, you know what? Maybe someone out there hears it, and they're like, you know what? Season 5 of this game, we're gonna get into it. I'm hoping for your sake.
I'd lose it. Yeah,
all right, I'm gonna go into a mini rant. I've gone through this rant before, but I don't think I've ever done it on All Elite Arcade. I've pitched this to the people within our company, and I've pitched it outside to the world, but AEW should produce a vehicular combat game, a wacky races style game. It sounds crazy, but hear me out. Think about this, okay? We have all these factions. We have all these wrestlers. Wacky Races was about racers of weird characters in weird vehicles fighting each other, having different weapons and stuff. I think it's well-timed. Twisted Metal hasn't come back. It's back on TV, but it doesn't seem to be back in the video game format. Vigilante 8 hasn't come back. There's a whole niche out there of vehicular combat games that no one is doing. We could be doing it. Darby Allin and Sting in a coffin on top of a skateboard, riding one way. FTR and their debut truck going another. You've got all of Dark Order, all of the full fleshed out crew, all 8 members in a clown car that's purple, being dictated by Brody Lee. There are a lot of people within our show, and we've established like vehicles. Hangman on a horse or a bunch of tractors. I'm trying to think. There's definitely more. I've fleshed this out before, but I'm telling you, I know people want a wrestling game. I don't think that's true. I think what really people want is an AEW vehicular combat game. And so, tell Tony Khan to invest into it.
I'll tell you what, Uno, I'm in.
All right, good. Like that's two. That's like two on the petition already.
That's 2 of us. Yeah. Garcia, thank you very much for your question. Appreciate it.
Johnny the Jet sends out this question. He says, what video game storyline do you think would be adapted into a year-long wrestling angle? Ooh.
Very, very good question. Uno, do you mind if do you want to start on this one?
I have a short one I can get into, but I feel like
go.
if you truncated Metal Gear without the weird stuff, but about a wrestler working for someone that ends up being his clone, and he's just a clone of a better version of he's like a better clone of that version, and the bad guy is also a clone of that version. And then I don't know how you do this. You can't really do it in wrestling, but you know what? If they all had masks, we could pull it off, and for a full year long, we could have Evil Uno and Evil Uno 2 and 3 battle it out for dictatorship. That would be. I think Metal Gear could easily become a pro wrestling angle if you're willing to blur the lines a little bit.
Yeah, that would be sweet. And Metal Gear, just one of the best stories in gaming for sure. But yeah, this is such a good question, and I immediately think about one person's story. I've mentioned him a million times, but his name is Handsome Jack. And I love the idea of within wrestling, because again, Handsome Jack started off as a hero. He was a good guy trying to do the right thing. And then eventually he gets screwed over by some bandits, and it really twists his mind and warps his perception of reality, where he becomes the ultimate villain. I would love to see at some point in wrestling like a really extensive idea of the Handsome Jack story, where someone is just as good gets, and then over time, after taking just betrayal after betrayal, he ends up losing it and becomes the biggest villain in the entire company. So I'm going to go with the Handsome Jack storyline.
You know what? Give us the book. We can make this work. We can make this work for sure. Great question, Johnny the Jet. Thank you so much.
Yes. And last but not least, Kyle. Kyle, thank you very much for the question. Hey, Uno and Chugs. Been a fan of Uno since AEW's launch and have been a fan of Chugs since the ROH days. Real ones know. Thank you, Kyle. Anyway, my question for both of you is, if you could live in one video game world, what world would it be? Thank you guys for everything you do. Thank you, Kyle. Great question. So which video game world would you live in? I could start with this one for sure. Please do. Without question, I actually just said this on stream the other day, but The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. That world has some of the most beautiful locations and beautiful areas in all of gaming. I wish I could teleport to Skellige right now, and I wish the song would play in the background when I was there. But it's such a beautiful landscape. There's so much like life and just so many beautiful colors. It just is such an amazing, amazing map and an amazing, amazing world to live in. Obviously, there's some pretty nasty monsters and some pretty nasty humans in the world of The Witcher 3. But as far as like a location that I could just walk around in, I feel like I would be just at peace 24/7 if I lived in the world of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt.
So I thought of one, and the issue with it is that some aspects of it seem incredible, but other aspects do not. But I feel like living in BioShock, and not necessarily just the world that's subterranean under the water, but BioShock Infinite, where they have cities and villas flying in the sky, and you're going from city to city and stuff. I feel like a future where there are cities across every aspect of the world seems super fascinating, especially those games where like Underwater was beautiful at times but terrifying, and then Infinite is almost a gorgeous game the entire time through. It's just politically crazy in a way that you're like, well, of course you don't want to live in that kind of world, but super colorful. I just think a future where we have like figured out the flight, we have figured out what's underwater, seems super fascinating. And I just think aesthetically I've always really liked those games, and I just think that would be a world that's really fleshed out and interesting to be in for sure. No, great choice. And Kyle, again, thank you very much for the question. Very much appreciated. Thanks to everyone that sent out those questions. If you want your questions sent out to us, you can go to tbs.com/arcade mailbag. If you are a U.S. citizen, we answer at least 2 or 3 questions every single episodes, and we love it, so please do send it out. Also, if you're on YouTube, go to youtube.com/AEW Games down below and let us know what pro wrestling or what video game storyline do you think could make a good year of pro wrestling storyline?
Yeah, good one.
And if it happens on a show that we produce, well, we stole it from you. But we'll give you your props. But do go into youtube.com, AEW Games, and go in comments and let us know. I will be reading them next week and throughout the week. We're on, our episode drops every single Monday on the audio formats right in the morning, early morning. You can have it on your commute, wherever it may be, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so on. But we're also on YouTube, youtube.com/awgames. We go at noon Eastern Standard Time on Mondays. If you want to see our beautiful faces, if you want to see clips of certain games that we're talking about, there's the YouTube format, and there's a whole comment section you could contribute to. Go out there, subscribe, and do follow the All Elite Arcade podcast there every single Monday. Chugs, both of us are on Twitch again.
Yes, all is right in the world, Uno.
We
all
did
is
it.
Right in the world. But once again, you can find me at twitch.tv/thechugs. Lately, I've been streaming 5 days a week, and I'm trying to keep it that way. So please feel free to come and hang out. We're playing a wide variety of games. So yeah, twitch.tv/thechugs.
I'll be on twitch.tv/eviluno. I played some Fortnite. I think I'm going to be jumping in some Alan Wake Lake House. I've been deep into some Vampire Survivors. We didn't talk about it early in the show, but I am just chipping at that game. So I'm probably going to be streaming some of that stuff this week. I did a stream last week. I'm finally back. So go to twitch.tv/eviluno and twitch.tv/thechugs. Check us out this week and come watch some video games with us.
Yeah.
That is it for this week's All Elite Arcade, but we will be back next Monday, as always, for myself and the Chugs. Bye-bye.